All right, welcome back to Season 2 of Science vs. Conspiracy over Coffee,
Welcome.
the podcast that dives deep into unexplained mysteries and conspiracies. I'm your host, Conspiracy, and with me as always, Science.
Yeah, and I try to bring some evidence-based research to the field and level out some of the conspiracy theories with a little bit of fact.
All right. Just a quick note before we get started here. We just want to give a quick shout out to all the people who have followed us on social media and have subscribed to our YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
And the links are in the show notes for anyone who hasn't checked us out. And also, we wanted to mention that we have a Patreon page with perks like early access to the podcast and access to our Discord server. And more perks are going to be added over time.
So come join us.
So if you'd like to support the show, come join us. And the link is in the show notes. And before we get started, today's coffee selection.
Alrighty, so something a little different today. Well, we've actually had this before and we really like it. It's a kind of simpler coffee. It's the President's Choice. So for those of you who have access to a Loblaws, No Frills, Real Canadian Superstore. Again, this is not an ad. This is a President's Choice breakfast blend. It's a nice little medium roast. It's got some hints of caramel, and if you've listened to our season 1, you know I love a little hint of caramel in my coffee. This is a nice little mellow yet lively. I would love to know how they write these descriptions, honestly. I do find it mellow. I do really like it, and I love the hint of caramel. How about you?
Yeah, I quite enjoy it too.
Yeah, it's a good little coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our breakfast blend this morning.
So grab a cup of coffee, pull up a chair, and get ready for Season 2. Today's episode of Science vs. Conspiracy over Coffee, we tackle the Large Hadron Collider. We'll be right back. The Large Hadron Collider, or LHC, is the world's largest and most powerful particle accelerator. Built by CERN between 1998 and 2008, the particle accelerator measures 17 miles in circumference and is buried 175 meters beneath the France-Switzerland border.
Do you know what CERN stands for?
I do, but tell us.
Yeah, it's just the French version of saying the European Organization for Nuclear Research.
Cool, very cool. The LHC began operation on September 10th, 2008, but it started smashing subatomic particles in 2010.
So yeah, the LHC is really cool. What it does, it looks at subatomic particles, matter, physics, the nature of the universe, and the rules of interaction for all these particles. And what it does, just so you folks know, it's got beams of particles traveling at energies up to 99.9 repeating percent of the speed of light, which is amazing. They collide at the center of the Atlas detector, and they produce what they call collision debris in the form of new particles, which then fly out in all directions. They record the trajectory, momentum, the energy of these particles, and allow them to be identified and measured. They do about 1 billion particle interactions every second. And I know, right? And only 1 in a million is about flagged for potential investigation. And then I think you were just going to mention one that was revolutionary that they found.
In the Collider's short history, the LHC has provided science with answers to long sought-after questions. The most important contribution to date has been the discovery of the elementary particle named the Higgs boson, also known as the God particle. CERN shut down the LHC in 2018 for upgrades that were scheduled to last 3 years. But is there a darker, more secret agenda behind the LHC? In August of 2016, a leaked video appeared on the internet of what appeared to be a ritual killing of a woman by individuals wearing black cloaks. It was filmed in the CERN courtyard in front of the statue of the Hindu deity Shiva, or Shiva the Destroyer.
So, do you know anything about Shiva and Shiva's history and significance, and how CERN was to come with this statue of Shiva?
Yeah, the statue was a gift from India to celebrate their association with CERN, which started in the 1960s. Shiva the Destroyer, the cosmic dancer, symbolizes the natural flow of divine energy. In Hinduism, the universe is thought to regenerate itself in cycles of every 2 million years, 2,160,000 years. Shiva destroys the universe at the end of each cycle, which allows it for the creation leading to a new creation. This leads some people to believe that this is actually the real purpose of CERN, is to open up a portal to another universe, destroying ours in the process.
Okay, so this supposed stabbing of a woman.
So the supposed stabbing of this woman was reportedly to be fake. CERN came out with, it was so popular that they had to address it, and they did a large-scale investigation and brought in different security measures after the fact. But as of today, they're denying that, they're not denying that it actually happened. They're saying that a bunch of scientists were doing a practical joke and did this in front of the large statue.
Yeah. Do you know any scientists?
Well, you.
There's a lot of dark humor.
Yeah, but why would they do that?
I don't know. Why does anybody do anything? They thought it would be funny.
Right, but it's not the first time that people in power have gone off to do some ritual magic. Like, for instance, in 1947, and I'll get into this in next week's podcast when I talk about Jack Parsons and the Babylon Working Project. But Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard, and for those of you who don't know, Jack Parsons was one of the founders of rocket science in the U.S., and L. Ron Hubbard, the science fiction author turned Scientologist founder. In 1947, they went into the desert and did some ritual sex magic to open a portal for the goddess of Babylon to emerge and take human form. But
Is that where the Red Hot Chili Peppers got the Blood Sugar Sex Magic album title?
Probably.
I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah. Well,
it just occurred to me.
And then you have the guys over at the Bohemian Grove that do ritual sacrifices in front of a giant owl. And these are politicians and people of influence. National Geographic did an article on the Bohemian Grove in the early part of the 19th century, or 1900s, sorry. So there is a history of people in power who want more power and who are experimenting with these occult figures.
Yeah, but this wasn't an actual killing.
We don't know that.
Yeah, because somebody ran down. They saw, they were recording it, and they left the camera running, and they ran down to make sure the woman was okay, and it was just a joke.
It's not a joke.
They were goofing.
Maybe it wasn't, though.
But maybe it was.
Maybe it wasn't.
What would be the purpose?
It's about power.
But do people generally do sacrifices to Shiva? The answer is no. They don't. Shiva isn't one of those gods that requires sacrifices. And he himself, might be the god of destruction.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't demand, supposedly. I'm not Hindu, so please correct me, folks, if you know more about this than I do. But, he doesn't demand ritualistic sacrifices. He just happens to be the bringer of destruction, but it's in the process of rebirth, which, holy cow, what just occurred to me? What crappy movie we watched on the weekend?
The Eternals?
Oh my God, folks, if you haven't seen it,
don't.
Let me save you. Because essentially that's what this is all Theirs is about bringing destruction to bring about rebirth. But, spoilers be damned, whatever. The movie sucks.
One of the worst movies ever.
Oh, yeah. And we love Marvel, you guys. So it's not an anti-Marvel. It's just anti this movie. It was awful. But so anyway, I mean, it's only to bring forth new creation. Mm-hmm. So are you saying that this was a real, honest to goodness human sacrifice to appease the god Shiva, who doesn't require it, in order to get more action in the LHC?
Well, they did discover the Higgs boson after that. Another thing is in 2010, when the experiments first started, is also, I don't know, coincidentally, when we talked about this in another podcast about the Mandela effect. When Fiona Braun started talking about the Mandela effect was in 2010. And for those of you who don't know, we'll put a link to that podcast in the show notes. But essentially, the Mandela effect is when large groups of people remember certain events differently than everyone else. This really started to take hold in 2010, just as the LHC was firing up and starting to do experiments. So this leads people to believe that maybe something more sinister is going on, and they did open up a portal of some sort to another universe, which is causing, I guess, to borrow a line from Riverdale, the blending of the two universes.
Oh my God, you just admitted publicly that we watch that show. We only watch it for our daughter. So here's the thing.
Yep.
So there's a couple things there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I hate to burst your bubble, or rather smash your particle, but that's a good one, right?
Yeah, it's a good one.
This mock fake joke sacrifice was 2016.
Mm-hmm.
The Higgs boson was discovered in 2012. So, unfortunately, your timeline's off a bit there.
Or is it? As if we smashed and opened up a portal to another world, then that opens the door to anything, any sort of timeline.
So it didn't cause the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect, like we talked about in our other podcast, is scientifically explainable through false memories, etc. And just because CERN is looking at particle collisions doesn't mean they caused a tear in the fabric of the universe. And in fact, trying to learn about it is very different than causing it.
Right, but they're creating little black holes and they don't know what they're doing. This run 3 is providing, where's the number here? 13.6 trillion electron volts of energy, which is far greater than what they already used. And so nobody really knows. That's why, as part of the experiments, nobody really knows what this is going to cause.
Yeah, but it's contained, for one thing, right? It's contained.
But you can't contain if they were to create a black hole will suck everything in.
And did you know, CERN has publicly stated, and there is scientific evidence to support this, there's actually much higher energy particle collisions happening all the time in our universe. So are you saying that we're walking around with like a zillion little black holes in front of our eyes? Is that what the floaters are that I see in my eyes? Because if so, that's kind of scary. But like there's particle collisions happening all the time.
Yes, they're somewhat natural caused, not artificially induced.
Yeah, but if those were even higher energy and stronger, then wouldn't we have a zillion rips in our universe?
Maybe we do. Maybe that's what's causing the Mandela effect. And maybe that's why we see UFOs and ghosts and all these other unexplainable mysteries, because...
And earthquakes and thunderclouds. No, really, I read this. People are blaming... There was like a storm at like a tennis match in Switzerland, near near CERN,
Right.
and people got freaked out because they didn't bother to look at science and look at clouds. And there was a thunderstorm, and they're like, "Oh, CERN, it's ripping a hole in the universe." You know, it just shows the scientific illiteracy of the general public. I'm sorry to say. Get educated, folks. Take the time to look it up. Don't just believe a voice on a TikTok.
Oh, I totally agree with that. This is the problem with when you get into start talking about conspiracy theories and unexplained phenomenon and then trying to get science to explain it away. It always comes back to the same thing is that, yeah, science can explain 99.99% of all unexplained, so-called unexplained phenomenon can be easily explained through proper scientific method, but there's still that one little percent that can't.
Point 0.00001. Yeah.
And that's all it takes. That little fraction of a percentage that makes things different.
Well, you know what? And that actually raises a really good point because, you know, we did see from the James Webb that there are multiple galaxies out there that we didn't even know before, and much more detail. So they had pictures, but the pictures that we got now, just last week or the week before, I guess now, are in so much more detail with the new telescope that they actually, if they were looking at one image and thought it was one galaxy, now they see it's actually got a whole bunch of little baby galaxies inside of it. So, I mean, the fact that you're saying is that there is that, you know, 0.001% that's unexplainable. Yeah, sure. That's true. Doesn't necessarily mean it's all sinister and ritual sacrifices, though.
You're right. But there are, just because science can explain it away and maybe some of these rituals are fake, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not intentionally or unintentionally ripping a hole in the fabric of space and time.
Yeah, I just think that if there was a rip in the fabric of space and time, we'd actually know about it, because I think it would be, and to this I can speak to the benefits of social media, because there's a physicist from CERN who took it upon herself to go, look, guys, just because you can't remember how they spell double stuff Oreos doesn't mean that we are sinister and trying to change that on you to trick you. You just couldn't remember how it was spelled. And so it's, you know, so.
It doesn't mean it doesn't happen, though. That isn't happening. As you yourself said in the podcast that there was a couple couple occurrences that you couldn't explain, that you thought something was one way, but it was really another way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I attribute that to my failing memory. And just because science can explain most of it and not that 1% or 0.001% yet, doesn't mean that we won't.
Exactly.
Be able to explain it scientifically. So it doesn't mean it's ritualistic sacrifices, sinister.
There's always going to be that one little bit that we don't know.
That's because we're evolving, and
we
we're learning
evolving.
more. We're learning more all the time. Science is currently evolving.
Mm-hmm. I watched a video the other night about how they're talking about reassessing the gravity theory of gravity, and how it's evolving and everything. So I agree with you that things are,
because we have better science and technology as time goes on.
But as time goes on and things evolve, then we might actually, hey, wait a minute, we did rupture space and time back in 2010, and there is something weird going on.
Because if they that's possible.
Because like if the government or a group of scientists or something, they're not going to be able to put that out there. Oh, sorry guys, we kind of created a black hole which sucked us all in, and we're now all living on the other side in the upside down. They're not going to release that.
You know how many people though said that CERN was going to cause the upside down when they relaunched the LHC on July 5th? Because Stranger Things. This is one of the fallacies of timing and it's called historical bias. Everybody had just binge watched Stranger Things season 4, volume 2, and volume 1 shortly before that. Volume 2 came out on July 1st. July 5th, CERN was gearing up the LHC again. And people were like, "Oh, it's going to cause this and this and this and this." No, that's not actually happening.
I think it's just interesting timing how they plan these things. And you can understand why people are questioning, I guess, their motives, because also on June 24th in the morning, there was a planetary alignment while they were working on the launch of relaunching the LHC.
Yeah, but planetary alignments, it's just a load of hooey. Like, none of this actually impacts life on a daily basis, and astrology and all that.
Well, that's a whole different show about astrology, because I'm sure an astrologer, astrologer,
I think, yeah.
Astrologi, when there's multiple of them, they would disagree.
Oh, for sure they would. Yeah,
there is something to it.
Yeah,
and
see, I'm meant to be devil's advocate here, though, because I'm the scientist here.
You're the scientist.
Yeah,
but they would. Planetary alignments like that don't come that often, and even going back, and we're getting slightly off topic here, but it all kind of relates, and I guess that's what kind of season 2 here is going to show, is that there's a connection between seemingly unrelated events, how everything is kind of connected. Anyway, going back here, the Egyptians and the Mayans, they all built temples with planetary alignment and astrology in mind.
Oh, for sure.
And I think a lot of that plays a huge part into how different businesses and scientists and governments conduct their business. And also take, for instance, the CERN logo. It looks like 666, just kind of the 3 6s turned off on their axis. 6. Well, I'll put a link to it.
It's a spinning collider. It's the spinning.
No, but it's
the spinning.
Yeah, but why? You could do a zillion things with a circle, but they stuck lines coming out that are like a 6. And
yeah,
666,
I know. I see it.
Yeah, the mark of the beast. So like,
I see it.
CERN could have chosen any sort of logo, but they went with that, and so did a lot of other businesses. And we talked about this with the moon landing, and the secret moon bases, how the other governments around the world and their space programs all have a similar look to it. So
because they're talking about space. Make sure you go listen to that one too, folks.
We'll put a link.
Yeah.
But these companies and businesses and governments could choose anything that they want for a logo, but they choose them very specifically and for very specific reasons.
But you digress.
Yeah, I'll get into a lot of this in the coming weeks.
So I think that's good for CERN and the LHC for today, unless you had anything else you wanted to throw at me. Do you want to throw any more particles my way?
Let us know in the comments. What do you guys think? Is CERN up to no good? Or are they actually just doing boring science?
Oh, far from boring, I must say. Far from boring. Looking at the existence of matter. Why does matter have mass?
Why does it matter?
Why does it matter? Good one. Why? What about dark matter, antimatter? And I mean, it's all very exciting. And yes, theoretically, the existence of alternate universes and how all these particles relate. It's very exciting.
Mm-hmm. Looking forward to what they discover, and if we're still around.
Yeah, it might not be in our lifetime. But, we'll see. But for now, I think I just need to remind you folks, stay curious, but rely on the facts.
And remember, being paranoid is smart. We'll see you next week. If you like the episode, don't forget to subscribe. You can download us on any of the major podcasting platforms. This week's episode of Science vs. Conspiracy Over Coffee was produced by Lethologica. Writing and research was done by Bob Homer and Jennifer Timer.